All right. Welcome to this week's live office hours. It's already April 16th. I don't know what happened. I feel like last week was 2 weeks combined. I don't know, but here we are. Casey, how's it going?
Good. Things are good. Yeah, Q1 kind of evaporated before our eyes, but yeah, Q2, folks are starting to get back into the swing of things, probably
Yeah.
focusing on sourcing. I know Easter's this weekend. There may be some, Easter products or toys or things like that. I don't know if anyone
Some
else, my
Easter
mom always went
discounts
with
on
Easter
OA.
basket. Yep, exactly. So yeah, getting some good movement in the space. I know folks usually take the first couple months of the year off, but folks are really getting
Yeah.
back in that swing of things. So
Well, Casey, I'm struggling right now because OpenAI is releasing a new model right now, and I'm dying on the inside. I'm itching. Apparently, it's amazing. And to kind of kick this off, one thing I thought would be helpful, we talk a lot about these different ideas, especially when I'm doing these live calls in like private groups and stuff like that. I always get asked like, hey, where's AI at today? How can I utilize it to like help me today? Like, I don't need agents. I just like, what's the baseline here?
right.
And so I finally had some time. I wrote up a blog post essentially on how to do the things I'm talking about. And the thing I'm talking about right now specifically is what happens when you get all the best information on a given subject. You put it into a project in one of these large language models, whether that's OpenAI's GPTs or Claude projects. I lean more towards Claude projects.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could just ask it really detailed questions, give it a ton of context about you, and have it make you better. So I've got like 4, maybe 5 of these that I've created in all different, kind of areas of life.
Sure.
So I want to share this with you guys. I'm going to walk you through this because sometimes, when I'm speaking about these things, it's like, okay, I kind of get what you're saying, but like, it's not as concrete, right? Because it's really just like this random nerdy thing that I'm talking about. So I call this blog post "Building Your Personal AI Brain Trust." And what's fun is I actually brain dumped all this into Claude and said, hey, write me. I used one of my agents and said, hey, make me a solid blog post on this. And so the whole concept here is pretty straightforward. What we're going to do is we're going to create a project in Claude, and we're going to give it a definitive like focus. So it might be sourcing, right? Like we're going to keep a lot of this as close to selling as possible. It might be inventory management. And so what we're doing is, and actually AI helped me create all these, which is cool. So like these are some of the ones I currently use. So I have like a high agency coach. I actually used that last night, which is cool. And basically what we're doing, this is like the whole thing. We're going to take an area that we really want to do better in. Could be sourcing, could be inventory management, could be cash flow management, could be how to be a better founder or business owner. And then we're going to curate knowledge. And I'm going to show you guys how to do that because it's actually super simple. And we're going to find the best of the best. It could be long form articles, could be videos, could be books. Yes to all the above. We're trying to find the best here because if you think about courses, if you think about coaches, what are they really doing? Well, they're aggregating the best information on a given topic and then giving it to you in a structured way. AI can kind of do that for you now. You don't really need a $5,000 or $10,000 coach anymore. You can basically just go find the raw resources that they're using in from their experience and actually port that stuff in. And so then what we're going to do is we're going to add that to a Claude project, and then we're going to give a little bit of instructions like, hey, you're my high agency founder or founder coach. I want you to help me. I want to be able to give you problems that I'm struggling with or things that I'm procrastinating on. I want you to help me use your project knowledge to help me work through that, help me solve these problems. And so I kind of break this down pretty well. So instead of, I want to be better at marketing, I need help creating compelling email campaigns for SaaS product launches. So you want to be super specific in what you're trying to build these for. And they take 10 to 30 minutes, depending on how much knowledge you're given. I have a leverage coach. So I want to get better at utilizing different forms of leverage, not just tech. That's kind of my default. There are 2 full books and probably 50 documents in that one project. It's insane. So that one took a little bit longer. And how do you find this amazing information? Well, you go to Perplexity, right? We open up Perplexity. And let's do this. I'm going to use this exact same example here. So we're just going to copy this. We're going to do it live real quick. So we're going to jump into Perplexity. I'm going to throw on research mode. It's going to do a little bit more digging for me. And I say, I need help creating blah, blah, blah. And then I'm going to say, find me the best long form articles and books on this specific subject. Now, my little hack, you guys can't see it because I'm only sharing the screen here, is I pull up Raycast. I have a prompt in here that says, hey, improve this prompt. So I'm going to do that. I'll paste in what it's created so that fast. So now I just made it better. So now it's more specific, right? So just same thing I was saying, but way more explicit. And then we're just going to say, hey, go do it for me, please. It's going to take a little bit of time, right? We're going to walk away, 2 to 5 minutes, depending, get some coffee, go source, go do something else. We're going to come back. I usually get a notification from the browser. It's like, hey, that's done, right? And so all I'm doing is I'm getting this list. I'm going to those articles. I'm copying them, adding them to my Claude project. And let's say it's a book. Well, I don't really want to read the whole book. I want to move faster than that. So I'll then use Perplexity again and say, hey, I want a super detailed summary of this book by this author. It needs to contain all their frameworks, all their perspectives, blah, 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 blah. And then it gives you like a 3-page summary of the book. So then I'll use that as project knowledge in my AI project. And it's really that simple. And now what's nice is, you've curated the high quality, knowledge sources. We've uploaded them. And then we give a little bit of instructions. And I give like an example here, right? So like if you need help writing email newsletters, like some of these things are just help me be a thought partner, right? On this particular subject. Other things are, I need you to do this for me. So I call it a brain trust because most of the time I'm building these to help me solve problems. I am also creating versions of this that directly do something for me. So like, take this blog post, convert it to a really solid newsletter. I gave you all the knowledge of how to do that correctly with some examples that I like. Is it perfect? No, but it's 80% of the way there. I go in and make my own tweaks. I'm like, great, we're done here. And I gave some examples here. So like the high agency founder, I read a blog post 2 weekends ago on high agency. It was the best thing I've ever read. It really threw my mind for a loop. I was like, I need to do better at this. So I used that article as the first piece of knowledge. I then went to Perplexity, did exactly what I'm showing you guys here. And now if I'm procrastinating on something, I just jump into it and just say, hey, I'm procrastinating on this one thing. Help me figure that out. And it goes, okay, cool. Here's how we're going to solve this together. Here's a bunch of different ideas. And sure enough, I start moving faster and faster and faster. So you can imagine finding, and all right, so here's that's already done, right? So email marketing for SaaS 101, how to craft SaaS marketing strategy. That's kind of helpful. We want some strategy, 21 product launch examples. That's awesome. And I would literally go to each one of these. And then, all right, so here's some books. Okay, the SaaS email marketing playbook, marketing handbook, email marketing strategy. Okay, that covers the basis. If I start with just these, I'm in a pretty good spot. Now, again, imagine, I'm going to stop my screen here. Imagine you're finding amazing information on how to source well. Great. Create a sourcing coach Claude project and be able to ask it questions. If you're like, I'm not sure if this is the right decision. Great. Go give the context to your project and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Is this right? Am I missing something obvious here? And it's going to use the knowledge you gave it to kind of justify its answer. So you can break out the skills, the subjects of being a Amazon or Walmart seller and just do that. I mean, if you're like, does this break TOS? That should kind of tell you, hey, I don't know TOS. Let me go copy and paste the entire TOS of Walmart or Amazon, throw it into a Claude project and be able to ask one question and it just give me the answer. I don't have to reread the whole thing. I don't even need to read it, period. Just tell me the answer. And what's cool is you can do this with videos. So you're not uploading videos, but you can definitely take, an amazing video. Like Chris Grant has an awesome podcast on how to handle Section 3s. Great. Go take that video from YouTube, convert it to a transcript, take that transcript and then upload it as project knowledge. And now you can be like, hey, I'm dealing with Section 3. Here's exactly what's happening. What does Chris recommend? And it will tell you the answer.
Yeah, I think I've been using AI, and in general, my main use of AI is to create outlines or get me 80% of the way there and then fine tuning
Yeah.
things. I think this evolution of it being able to, obviously, in Claude's example, like upload specific sources and have it consolidate,
Right.
it's a huge time saver. Like you said, you don't have to read a 300-page book. It's going to give it to you in 3 pages, cuts that time way down. But then
Yep.
also being able to have like a back and forth dialogue with that data or whatever sources you pumped in there, being like, hey, what would you recommend in this scenario, and having
Yeah.
that kind of back and forth without having to pay for a coach or hire someone or
Right.
get a VA who may be a little bit more experienced in a specific area. Just being able to do it all yourself and kind of quickly get up to speed. I think we always
Yeah.
talk about, getting to 80% in
Right.
20% of the time that you would typically use to become an expert in a certain
Right.
subject. I think this just really blows up that potential and really makes it quick. You could spend
Yeah.
one whole day and you're going to get to 85%, maybe even 90% of the knowledge you would possibly have in a certain subject.
Yeah.
So yeah, really will help folks kind of pick up velocity, especially if you are a new seller and you're not sure
Right.
how to create a process or where to start. This will kind of help you both, or help
Yeah.
you kind of get you pointed into both the right direction. And then
Right.
also, once you have that process created, how I typically use AI is writing an outline, getting 90% of the way there, and then being like, hey, this doesn't quite
Right.
correlate to my specific setup or my business process or what's going to be best
Yeah.
for me. So then you can kind of get to the tweaking area a
Yeah.
lot more quickly. And that's where you really start to unlock and exponentially grow and find what's going to work best for you.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's just an exciting time with so many kind of
Yeah.
new iterations and improvements being made so quickly. It makes it much more accessible and applicable to just about everything. Just depends
Yeah.
on those prompts and how you initially tailor that information.
Well, and it is a bit of a open sandbox, right? Like it's kind of like, well, what do I do with it? What do you want to do? Let's see if it works. My mom, I was catching up with her on the phone last night and we started talking about AI and stuff. And she's like, it's a bit overwhelming to get started with. Like, I don't know where to get started. And I told her, I sent her that blog post. I said, why don't you start here? Because, we have to differentiate between AI that is completing tasks for you, like Maven, right? Like Maven, our AI strategy is doing the work. It says, "Hey, I'm going to get you out of the way. I got this. Like, we're good here." But then there's using AI to make you as the individual better too. And think about that, right? Like, imagine having a coach that has the best information on being an Amazon seller possible, and you can wake up in the middle of the night at 2 o'clock in the morning and be like, this question, this problem is just eating me alive. Great. Take out your phone, go to that project because Claude has an app, and just ask that question or brain dump. I did something the other day. I had this crazy idea and I couldn't really clarify it in writing. So I opened up Claude, I turned on the voice mode, and I just brain dumped everything. And I said, okay, I need your help to clarify what I'm saying, because like I know what it is, but I cannot put it into words. And then it did it. And I was like, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Holy crap. And so it can help you clarify your own thoughts. Again, it can help you solve problems. And there's just something about that. And forget being a business owner, forget being a founder. This is like a human, interesting kind of concept where you want to get better at something. Well, what would you tend to do if you really want to get better at one subject? Well, you're probably going to watch some videos on YouTube. You're probably going to try to read a few books. And let's be honest, you're probably not going to comprehend everything. And you're certainly not going to execute on it perfectly because you still have you're like, okay, I get the concept, but how do I apply it? It's the practicality of it. Well, imagine just taking those same resources and actually having a conversation with it. And what's so interesting is it's still a large language model. So I can say, hey, you said this thing. This gives me an idea. What about this? And it might be like, no, that doesn't make sense. And here's why. Or actually, that's pretty interesting. Let's explore that deeper. I mean, this is dumbfounding stuff. And by the way, Claude is free. I don't know if projects cost money if you have to be on Pro, but Pro is $20 a month. Think about that.
Yeah.
I've got 5 of these things, right? Like, so in terms of like, how do I as a seller get value from AI? I think a lot of sellers right now are leaning on, well, what tools do I use to help solve this problem or do this thing for me, which is fantastic. You should definitely be doing that. But it should also be, how can it teach me how to be better on certain things? Like, okay, you got to start hiring now. Well, let's say you've never hired somebody before. Great. Go use Perplexity, find the best books and long form articles on how to recruit and hire people. Throw it in there and say, hey, I'm getting started hiring. I'm hiring a VA in the Philippines. What do I need to be aware of? How do I begin that process? And it will tell you how to get started. Is it going to be perfect? No, it never is. But if it's 80% of the way there, you still moved faster because it took you 2 minutes to get the answer instead of having to manually read. Like all the articles, I don't read them. That's what's so crazy. I do not read them. I skim them, be like, yeah, that's actually, that seems pretty good. I throw it in there, start having conversations so I can move dramatically faster.
Yeah. And one thing I've always kind of bucketed AI into like 2 different categories, like functional AI that like performs a task or a function for you, and then informational AI. Functional AI is still, it's become much better since it's been initially created, but I still think there are a lot of things that need to be done in order to have general functional AI, whatever it is, perform whatever task you're looking for. Currently, a lot of functional AI is created for a specific task, and it's hard to like teach it to do certain things. I know you've talked about different companies or products, I can't remember them off the top of my head, where you can kind of teach it to do certain tasks, but that's obviously a little bit manual upfront until it becomes self-sufficient.
It's not perfect.
Right. But I think we are getting to the point where the informational type of AI is almost as good as it can get. Obviously, I think we're like at that 85% level. So the last 15% will just be even that much more impressive. But like you were saying, typically, what would you do to learn a subject? You'd read books, you'd hire a coach, or you'd watch videos online, with the exception of the coach function, which would cost money. It was a one-way street of consuming information and then having to digest it yourself. What's amazing with Claude in this example is it's free to almost zero cost, or $20 cost to entry.
So negligible. Yeah.
Right. And you're now able to have a 2-way conversation with that information, as opposed to just, here it is, digest it and comprehend it how you'd like. You're now able to kind of continue to like, oh, would this make sense based on that information? Oh no, like maybe think about it this way. So it's really awesome that it's now more quick to learn things, get up to speed, and be able to take that information and use it to your advantage, as opposed to having to just, here's all the information, figure out what works.
Totally. Well, and think about it from this way too, right? Like now we're saying raw knowledge. Well, you can get that from anywhere. It could be a book, article, but I paid for a course on leverage because it was the guy who like really was teaching it. He wrote basically the book on Naval Ravikant. I forget the exact, the Almanac of Naval Ravikant, I think is what it was. Well, I can upload the whole book because it's free. I can upload the PDF, but I went through his course because I thought it was, a great concept. So in my leverage project, I went through the course, extracted all the copy, and put it in as project knowledge. Well, I already paid for it. So do I really need to go back into the course? And like, again, I can't go into a course and ask the exact question or problem I have. I have to go find it and be like, okay, well, how would this apply to my situation? Well, now it has the raw resources. So courses, I think, will still exist, because the upside of courses is you're getting that person's direct experience, not just the best practices, which are still very much important. You should still have those foundations. But now it almost makes courses more valuable, because now I can pay for it, go through and be like, oh, I learned a lot, but let me just take all the content, throw it into my, let's say it was a sourcing, an OA sourcing course, take all that, put into your OA sourcing project, assistant, coach, whatever you want to call it. And now you can just ask the questions as they come up in real time. So it's absolutely super fantastic. So we have a few questions here. What are your thoughts on Lindy.ai in relation to your current topic, and how it could be applied or provide value? You could, in theory, create the same thing in Lindy.ai. I personally wouldn't, because it's not really designed for that. They do have like knowledge nodes and stuff like that, but it's not designed for that purpose. So I personally, going back to what Casey was saying, there's kind of like this functional and informational AI. What we're talking about with like Claude projects is more informational. Can it do stuff? Sure. But it's going to do more like, text generation and stuff like that. Like, so yes, you can have a Claude project that helps you write better emails. Totally. You can do that. But I still bucket Claude more so in the informational side. Lindy is more so on the functional side. Like, can I automate this using artificial intelligence? So I personally would not try to build this in Lindy. It's going to be way more cumbersome, to be honest, just because it's not designed for this. I mean, this process literally takes 15 to 30 minutes, realistically, to just go from like, I want to get better at this. What is that subject? Okay, let me go, curate the knowledge, throw it in there, and start having conversations. You can do that relatively fast. So at the end of office hours today, could you share a starting point for the tools and services you personally use, along with simple example workflow? For instance, how you might combine ChatGPT, Claude, and Perplexity, or any other tools you find useful into a cohesive use case or daily workflow. I can actually. So if you guys want to see this, I can. So first and foremost, I'm going to share this with you guys. So on my personal site, I have a blog post called My Favorite AI Tools. I update this whenever I add something new. So it's not just stuff I've tried. These are things that I actively use every single day. And I used AI to help me kind of organize this a little bit to different sections. So it's not crazy. It's not insane. But there's some cool stuff in here that's super, super helpful. So this is like the starting point. Now, one thing I have been doing, and I can't, I could show this, debating if I want to. All right. So how do these things come together? All right. Let me, I have a new workflow I've been developing. I've been using it for about a week. I've realized there's a problem when it comes to task managers, because especially when you're running a company, you might have your personal task manager, and then you might have another task manager that, is for the company, but you still have tasks in there, right? So we use Linear for project management. I then have like things 3 or to-do-ists for my personal stuff, and I kind of hate it. So what I've been doing is using Raycast, which is a tool on that list, because they have a notes feature. It's actually pretty great. So what I do is throughout the day, and I have Raycast on my phone, finally, I just add bullet points. Hey, this is something I need to get done. So I've got, things that I'm thinking about throughout the day just get dumped there. And then in Linear, I've got a bunch of stuff there as well. And then of course I have calendar events, right? So let me grab my trusty little prompt here. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys so you guys can see this. So here's what I do. Can I not share Raycast? Okay, so that's fine. All right, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to share my entire screen so you guys can kind of see this end to end. Make sure I'm not going to show anything crazy. Awesome. Okay, so you guys can see my screen. Fantastic. Let me remove the window there. Okay, so here's what I do. I go into Raycast. I open up what's called AI Chat, and just here's how I do it. I go to AI Chat, hit enter. Then I have this cool little prompt here. So I mentioned those 3 things, right? So I got Linear issues, I've got Google Calendar, and then I got Raycast notes. So I can hit enter on this. It's basically just going to pull all of these things in for me. So it's getting my user from Linear. It's going to filter all the issues based on who it's assigned to. It's now getting the current time. It's searching notes. I told it the specific note I want it to get from, so it just read that. So here's all the stuff coming through. Here's all the calendar events. Great. So all these tasks are from Linear and my notes. Here's all my Cal stuff. So here's what I'll do. I'll copy this. I'll go into Claude. I'm already running it. And I'll dump it in here. And so what it will do, I'm using my leverage coach here. It will help me work through stuff, and it will keep things up to date as I'm making progress on it. And if a new task come up during the day, I'll just throw it in here. Like, this came up during stand up today, so I just threw it in there. And so, yeah, that's like one thing I consistently do now. And it is just a way for me to not have to go into 3 different applications, to grab the things that need to get worked on and factor in my calendar events. And now I could just run that command, copy it, throw it into my Claude project, which is actually my leverage coach. And if you notice on each of those tasks, it says, hey, here's a leverage tip. And so it's kind of prompting me to be like, hey, like, this seems like a repeatable thing. Do you have a checklist for that? I'd be like, actually, I don't, or, hey, could you automate this? Like, actually, maybe I could. Right. And so again, it's this thing where I'm kind of trying to take this AI first approach to task management. I have silos of data in different applications. Well, what if the data just came to me and organized itself in the way that I want it to? And then I could feed that into my Claude project, and my Claude project can basically help me work through stuff. And, I might jump into that project and be like, hey, I know I need to work on this right now, but I'm really kind of struggling on it. Well, that prompts me to then go into my high agency coach project and say, hey, I'm struggling to work on this. And I'll say, okay, let's figure this out together. And I'm like, okay, cool. Actually, I can start working on that now because now I have a clear path to start to work. I did that this morning. Funny enough. There's this thing that I had to work on. I was like, I really don't, because it's kind of overwhelming. Okay, that's my signal. Threw it over there. It's like, here's what you need to do. I was like, dang, that actually makes a lot of sense. All right, let's get at it.
Yeah, I think that's where I get a lot of help from tools like this, where it kind of breaks through all the noise, because us as humans, we're taking in all sorts of different factors, whether they're relevant or not. And it's able to kind of cut through like, hey, no, this is what's important. This is the process, and this is how you should do it or when you should do it.
Right.
That just helps me kind of be organized and become very list focused. And for whatever reason, AI tools, I'm able to be like, hey, here's factor 1, 2, 3. What do you think? And it's like, actually, just factor 1 and 2. Don't worry about factor 3.
That's it.
Let's get started with this starting point. So yeah, it does help kind of zoom in a little bit and kind of be more directional and
more focused.
Get started. Yeah, exactly. Focus. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for.
I have ADD, so if I feel like things are too chaotic, I can't work. I need clarity. If I feel like I have too much on my plate, even if in reality it would take me an hour to do it all, if it's a large volume, my brain doesn't function that well. Mm-hmm. So, I started to dump things manually into that Claude project, and it would be like, all right, let's strategize, figure out what's really worth your time right now. Like what do we really need to focus on, and the other things we could do later. Like take the trash to the street is on there today because I have to do that today, right? Like, but I'm not going to do that at like 9 a.m. Like that's an evening thing, right? So I just tell it, hey, I want to do this in the evening. It's super low priority. And so it helps me just get a clear picture as to what do I need to work on, what's important, and I can have conversations. It might assume that one task is very important, but I could just say, hey, actually, that was not super important. I have a lot more time on that. These other things, way more important right now. And it will reshuffle and be like, cool, that makes sense. And what's nice is like, I told it, hey, every time you respond to me, I want a status check on every single one of those tasks. I want to know which ones I've actually completed because I told you, and which ones still need to be completed, and which one I need to work on next. And so it does that. And so now I can track my progress throughout the day, which is nice for an ADD brain, because I go, oh, cool, dopamine. I did those things. Great. I'm, halfway through, or, hey, I only have one more thing to get done today. Awesome. Like just keep me on top of it. But that's one workflow where I'm technically touching a bunch of applications, but I'm using Raycast AI chat to import a bunch of information, take that over to a Claude project, which is what we've been talking about so far. And then I could just use that throughout the day like a task manager. And so that's one thing I've been experimenting with for the past week or so. And has been super helpful. And again, it's not crazy complicated.
Yeah, it's kind of like having an assistant that just summarizes your day and everything you need to do and how to do it. It just can't pick up your laundry for you. That's like the only thing it can't do is like the physical task, but it can do just about everything else if you give it the correct information and context. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I had, and it's simple things too. I wrote a blog post on this because I could not find the answer as to how to do this in any tool. I went to Lindy.ai, I went to Gumloop, Zapier, nobody could do this. And what I needed is twice a week, I need to create a structured linear issue. Call it a task if you're not used to the issue kind of language. It's structured the exact same. I have to give a title and a link. That's the only two inputs that I have to give. Once that's created, I then need to create a sub issue beneath that one assigned to somebody else. And it's basically the same title every single time. I got so sick of manually doing this. It was driving me nuts. And it's not that it took me forever to do it. It was just so repeatable and redundant. So I finally figured it out. I now have a snippet where I jump into that AI chat, same thing. And I say, do this. I give it the link and the title, and it does all of it for me. And now it takes me like 3 seconds to do it, and I move on with my life. It's little things sometimes, right? So like, there's a spectrum of this help save, 5 minutes a day. Great. That adds up. Now it's just a better process. Or it's as big as creating these massive Claude projects that are going to help you overcome or solve really difficult challenges, either as a human or as a business owner or founder. So it's kind of a choose your own, journey kind of a thing, which is very exciting because it means there's so much you can do. But it's also kind of like, well, I can do so much, but where do I start? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of difficult. That's why, with Maven, as an example, we wanted to avoid a lot of that. Of like, where do I start? And like, how do I understand? And like, what do I need to learn? It's like, let's get rid of all that. It's functional. Let it just do it for you better than you ever could and better than you could ever understand. And that's okay. So you can free up your time, because a lot of stuff is to free up your time, the functional side. But the knowledge side is, again, how do we learn? How do we do better? All these different things. So I wanted to share this kind of stuff with you guys because I get asked all the time, like, hey, what are your favorite tools? Sure. But if you guys have ever heard us speak, we are not the ones to say, just use this tool. I want to change how you think, because if I can change how you think, that's dramatically more impactful and valuable. It's the whole, teach a man to fish versus give a man a fish. Like, I want to teach you how to fish first and foremost, so you can just figure those things out and think differently. I've gotten to a point now where I just default to what AI would help me solve this problem. Sometimes it's knowledge, sometimes it's functional, and it really just depends. But there is a solution for daggum near everything right now, which is exciting and yes, very overwhelming. Like right now, for those of you jumping in kind of later, OpenAI just released a whole new model, and I'm itching to get access to it, because what new things does this now enable that previously was not possible? Let's see. Christopher, I think the answer in the form of yes, but not Claude, is because Claude has not yet taken the step or been brave enough to request user consent to access personal documents. Both Gemini and Perplexity have already taken the step to access personal documents, unlike Claude, or perhaps I am missing something. So you're not incorrect, Christopher. However, there's this new concept called MCPs, or Model Context Protocols. If you're running Claude on your desktop, you can actually add these. And the things I was doing with Perplexity, the way that works is they have extensions. So it's kind of like Alfred, if you're used to that. You can definitely just as easily launch application. That's like the main use case. But now they have extensions where, you can say, hey, integrate with Linear. Great, I can do a bunch of stuff there manually. Now they have the concept of AI extensions. It's the same extensions. So now I can just use natural language. I just tag it, so it knows kind of the context of what I want to do. And then I just say in natural language, hey, I want you to do X, Y, and Z. You can do that with Claude. It's just more manual because you have to actually go in. You're not writing code necessarily, but you do have to add the config files and stuff to Claude. So in theory, what I'm doing with Raycast, I could just as easily do directly in Claude. I could just say, hey, grab my tasks from Linear, grab this note from this place, hook up to my Google Cal, port it all in. You already have it ready to go. So I don't necessarily have to do that copy and paste process. I have just not taken the time to sit down and add MCP servers and clients and whatever to Claude. I just haven't done it. I use Raycast all the time, so it just made sense for me. So they are allowing a lot. There's a lot of demos I've been seeing of people hooking up these MCPs, which is basically like an integration, easiest way to think about it, to Claude, and they're doing some insanely amazing things. I just have not taken the time to do it. I'm kind of lazy with some of this stuff. So, but I know we got a lot more people jumping in. I know we've been riffing on some cool nerdy stuff, but please keep in mind there is no format here. It's not just Casey here and I, just kind of jamming on whatever we want to. We want to make sure that this is super value added for you as a seller. So our only ask is bring questions. Questions can be on any subject related to selling. If you guys want to keep talking about AI, I will certainly oblige. But I want to make sure this is super high quality for you guys. So if you have questions related to repricing, to selling on Amazon, to selling on Walmart, we want those questions as well, so we can dive deep into those things and make sure it's a super value add hour for you. See, Christopher, I know and totally follow MCP. I did not realize MCPs were being used for third-party app integrations. I'm using the term integrations very loosely here because integrations rely on APIs. MCPs is kind of like a new type of, I'm going to say a new type of API. They are different, but without getting too technical, they basically allow these LLM clients to hook up and run tool calls. So there is I have it in my notes somewhere. There's directories of MCPs and what they can do. So you can actually have Claude on your desktop be able to read your local files and do things with them. You can edit files, read files, move files, rename folders, create folders, whatever. So there's a lot you can actually do with MCPs if you really get deep into it. But like I believe there's a linear MCP. There's definitely a Google MCP, like Perplexity has an MCP. A lot of people are now just doing MCPs right after their technical integrations and their APIs. See, AJ, hey, a non-AI question. I appreciate that. For a listing that's selling above 30% ROI, and if I set my minimum to 30%, Maven, 30% minimum in Maven, does the algorithm keep my price at 30% or will it try to get max selling price? So it will attempt to get max selling price. I'm going to give a little caveat here though, because it's not max in the way that a lot of people use that term, like max. It's really trying to find that optimal price. Now, most of the time, the optimal price is going to be slightly above the current buy box value. So when I say max price, what I really mean is it's trying to find the balance between sales velocity and profitability, right? So we don't want to jack up your price too much and then really diminish the sales velocity, because now you're trading something, right? We want to find that balance as it's shifting, because it will. So it's not that it's going to stay at 30%. So it will try to bump up when it makes sense. So there's no like set timer where it's going to do that every 15 minutes. It's going to do it basically behaviorally. It's going to understand, is now the right time based on what's happening on the listing to attempt to raise the price? If yes, do it. If not, we'll wait. So no, it's not just going to stick there for the most part, assuming that the optimal price is above that current buy box price. If they are basically the same, then yes, that would be the case. So it really just depends. Casey, anything you want to add on to that?
Yeah, essentially just the way I like to think about it is like your min price is just established, your min and max price in general, specifically for Maven, is just establishing that range that it will test within to find that optimal price. It won't just sit at your min price. The only scenarios where I have seen Maven either get close to that min price or kind of stay there is if a majority of the competition is below that min price, and that typically includes that buy box price. So if the buy box is $5 below your set min and more than half the offers are below your set min as well, you may end up staying around that set min or at that set min, but that's typically not the case. So that min and max will just establish that range for Maven to kind of find that optimal price for you. Typically, it does work better when it has a wider range to test within. But with that being said, I always recommend that your min price is still a price point that would be acceptable for a sale, just because that is still within the range that Aura is permitted to reprice within.
Yeah. See, Christopher, question about repricing. Is there a first-time strategy doc for building your first repricing strategy? Casey, I'll let you handle that one as well, because we have some good stuff on it.
Yeah, so I'm going to post this article here, Chris. This article is an article which includes a video of me walking through creating a strategy from scratch. In that video, I do create essentially a buy box targeting strategy based on our best practices, but I do still walk through each of the sections of the strategy builder. So that'll help give you a better sense of the different areas of the strategy builder, what they do for you, and how to kind of take advantage of them. Additionally, I am going to post this second article. And this second article is on what we call our core 3 strategies. What this second article walks through is kind of our repricing methodology, if you will, with the main thought being when you have new inventory, you don't want to reprice too aggressively. And as your inventory begins to age and get older, you want to become more aggressive to avoid things like long-term storage fees and just to maintain healthy sales velocity overall. In that core 3 strategies, essentially what we recommend is starting with Maven, which will have the goal of searching for and finding that optimal price for that balance between sales velocity and profit margin that Dylan was mentioning. Typically, and this does vary from business to business, but in the article, we recommend maybe at that 30-day mark, you become a little bit more standard of targeting that buy box, trying to win the buy box, increasing that velocity a little bit and becoming a little bit more aggressive. Eventually, that last strategy is going to be a liquidation strategy. You're just trying to get the inventory off the shelves, avoid those additional fees, and kind of break even on some of those sales. Just to recoup, that capital so you can reinvest it into other products and better sourcing there. So those will be the 2 articles I recommend starting at. That Create a Strategy one walks through that strategy builder. That core 3 strategies will kind of walk through our repricing methodology and how we typically recommend folks approach it from a high level there.
Yeah, perfect. See, VM, if you sign up for the higher tier Raycast plans, do you still need individual subscriptions for AI tools like ChatGPT, Claude, etc., or are those capabilities fully included and integrated within Raycast? The answer is yes and no. If you're just chatting, then no, you don't need all of them. You can just, you basically in Raycast, you can say, hey, this is the model I want to chat with. Now, for things like the projects stuff that I'm talking about, where you need to be able to give it project knowledge and documents and stuff like that. In that case, you would still need one of those tools. So like, I don't build these projects in ChatGPT, although you technically can. They're called GPTs. They're just not as robust, in my opinion, from testing. Claude projects has been pretty great so far. So like, I could not replicate what I'm doing with Claude projects in Raycast. That's just not how it's designed. There's no place to put documents inside of it for it to understand that. So depends on what you're using it for. If you just are dipping your toes into this kind of stuff and just want to have conversations kind of ad hoc, Raycast is a great way to get started. You hit, command space, it's there. You can just type your question, hit tab, and you're technically chatting with a large language model. So it's pretty great, to be honest. You don't need your own API keys. I do pay for Pro for Raycast solely because of the AI extensions and the AI chat. I've been a free user for, probably a little over a year now. But once they came out with AI extensions, I was like, yep, you sold me. Like, I'll pay $20 a month solely to be able to @tag linear and say, hey, I need you to create a new project or a new linear issue. Here's the title, set the status to this and assign it to Dylan and hit enter, and it just takes off and does it for me. Wonderful. Like, I basically am at a point where I want to interact with my applications without using the actual application. Because you got a context switch, you got to jump over into different apps, open them up, or I could just hit command space, type what I want to get done, hit enter, and it got done. I don't have to touch my mouse, anything like that. So yeah, I just noticed they have got GPT 4.1. That is true. As of an hour ago, they also have O3 and O3 Mini. So O1's like their high tier, human reasoning model. They now have O3, which I am itching to play with this evening because I will hopefully have access to it. So, lot of cool things happening this week. I think they launched probably, actually, I think it's 5 models this week. It's 2 main models, and then there's like mini versions of each one. But yeah, I haven't played with 4.1 yet. I've heard decent things about it. What's starting to get difficult for people is the way you prompt these things are different. So like 4.1, from what I've been told and what I've seen, is it will follow directions more explicitly, which means you need to communicate dramatically better. So that's an opportunity, which I think is good, but most people can't communicate period. But this is why I use things like the snippets and Raycast. So I will find an awesome prompt. So like the one I used earlier in Perplexity, I said, make this, improve my prompt is what I titled it. So I just highlight the text, command space, improve prompt, hit enter, it does it for me. And then I hit enter again and it pastes the updated version. You don't even have to be great at prompting hardly anymore, unless you're doing like really complicated stuff. You can just write out what you want, use another prompt on your prompt, and get a better prompt. You see what I'm saying? It's AI all the way down, Casey. You know what I mean? Like I'm using AI to help me communicate with AI even better. It is slightly insane at this point.
Yeah. Well, especially with so many different versions of AI, like we were just saying, like your typical workflow or day is summarized by using Perplexity to gain sources, pumping that into Claude, maybe asking ChatGPT how to best prompt things, and they all kind of like feed into one another. So if you can get really well versed in using each of the individual AI tools that are available at what they're best at, that's just going to continue to like blow the roof up and just 1000%. Unlock that potential for everybody.
And this is why I like Raycast so much, because like there's a Perplexity extension, right? So I can just do, perp. It knows, okay, you're looking for Perplexity, hit tab or space, type out what question I have, hit enter, and like we're off to the races. Like I don't have to necessarily go to perplexity.com anymore. So I'm in the mindset of how do I reduce the friction and the steps between I either have a question that I want answered or I have a thing I want completed. And Raycast is kind of, funny enough, that gateway where it's like, just start here and we'll route you wherever the heck you need to go to get that done. So like, the thing I showed you guys, like importing my linear issues and stuff like that, I use AI chat just because it's a little cleaner. I could do that exact same thing just in the launcher. I could copy paste the exact same prompt and it would still do all those same things. So I don't have to go open AI chat. I just do it because I might want to go back and forth with it a little bit. So this is why I don't sleep well at night, Casey. Like I'm trying to wrap my head around these things. And, part of what I feel like is my nerdy responsibility to sellers is to test all these things and then be able to share, hey, here's where we're at from a technical perspective. How does this apply to you as a seller? And most of it does. Again, it may not be as, hey, help me source, it might not be that specific, but I'm right now focused on things of like, how do we become better human beings, better founders, whatever your job, your role is, how do I do that better? Because if we can start there, we're already uplifting incredibly fast. And then as these very specific solutions come out, you just plug them in. So that's why I think I really push this narrative and conversation a lot, is because I want you guys to be thinking about this stuff, because it's not that's going to be really exciting and useful in like 2 years. It's like, no, it's useful now, but you got to get a little creative. That's why I've been writing a lot more on the things I'm doing, because I want to give examples of what is possible today to at least start to get you guys to think like, okay, well, if it could do that, could it do this adjacent thing that's like kind of similar? So let's go try. Like we have a baseline now, we have a reference point, and let's just go see. So I know I harp on this so often. I'm sure Casey's dead sick of me talking about AI. But I do it, one, because I super love it. I think it's great. But most importantly, I want you guys to be aware of these things, because things are changing and it's in a positive way. You have access to these things. I like to say, like, listen, this is not relegated for Fortune 500 companies. We're not talking $1 million contracts here. We're talking $20 a month, if not free, period. A lot of the stuff I'm doing, you could probably do for free. I just like the convenience.
And one piece of advice that I've received in the past, and this was just around learning subjects or getting better, and I think it applies to AI very effectively, is zoom out before you zoom in. So if you're thinking about solving one problem, zoom out, like try to figure out maybe some umbrellas that problem may fall under. And then once you learn about that higher subject, you may think, or you may realize, hey, what I thought was the initial problem, it's actually one of these other problems or a couple things that are bleeding into that. So I always recommend like zooming out, figuring out what that big picture is. If you're trying to become a better Amazon seller, maybe start with, how do I become a better at running my business and being less specific.
Right.
And then you start to pick up on processes, practices, things
Yeah.
that you can then continue to drill back down in. And that's some of the better advice I've received, because I've been able to find things that are from different, departments, different industries that do still bleed over and are applicable to whether it's your day-to-day, your main function, your KPIs, your end goal, whatever it may be. But I think that's super helpful, especially when it comes to AI, because it's going to think about additional factors that you may not. So when you start at a higher subject and then zoom back in, you may zoom back in on that same problem with more context or more information that you may not have had prior. So it may get you a little bit closer before you even ask that one specific question you're trying to solve.
Yeah, I really like that. There's, when you're starting your first business, there's like 20 books everybody recommends you to read. Well, you're already busy and not sleeping. So yeah, go ahead and, find those higher level things like you're talking about, those books, throw them into a Claude project and be like, what's the pattern amongst all these that each of them recommend? It might be like, here's 5 things, like, oh, great, I'll start there. So it's really fun. Let's see, Steve B, is there any updates on integrations with other services like Sellerboard, or does that need to be completed with an API connection? So there's no announcements right now about new integrations. We are working on a ton of stuff. We did, however, release the public API. So it's behind a beta flag right now, but it's available if you want it. So just reach out to support and say, hey, can I get access to that API? We'll toggle that on for you, jump into your account, create your API keys, and then we'll link you out to the docs. And you can kind of build whatever you want, which is really nice. So we've added a lot of functionality to the API itself, especially with how early it is for us to release it. There's a lot of things you can do. So if the other software that you use also ideally has a public API that you can, or even a private, but you can get access to it, you can do whatever you want, all kinds of cool stuff. So, but no further announcements on integrations as of right now. I was playing with the API because now that we have an API, I really want to build a Raycast extension for Aura. I tried the other weekend. It's a little outside my expertise, but I want it. So we'll get there. I know James is kind of excited about it too, because I try to push everybody on the team to use Raycast. I was poking at Tasso. I think it was last week. I was like, you got to use Raycast, man. Like, it's amazing. Like, once you wrap your head around it, it's just like, holy crap. Yeah, this makes my computer dramatically better. Like, how did I exist on a computer prior to using Raycast? Like, I can't use anybody else's computer. Any other Mac, I'm like, I gotta click into the application to open it. No, dude, I hit Command Space, type the first 2 letters, hit enter, and move on. And now I actually don't do that. I use Option, the first letter of the application. So if I want to open Linear, I hit Option L. There it is.
Yeah.
I don't even want to type anymore. I basically want, the kids the toddler keyboards. They're like super big. There's like 5 keys on it. I want that. I just want to be like, boop, boop, boop. I'm done.
Yeah, it's funny. I know you were teaching the team some Raycast stuff the other week, and I've started to use it. I spend a lot of my time, thankfully, Intercom, our support system, if you will. That's where I spend 85% of my time. So bouncing between applications isn't quite as applicable for me.
Yeah.
But I'm starting to try and find some ways that it does speed up my day a little bit. Thankfully, helping you folks is really just all in one place, so I don't have to bounce around too much. But
that is true.
But yeah, Raycast is a very impressive tool, and if you sellers out there, users, whoever you may be, if you do find yourself bouncing in between a lot of different products or places, Raycast is a great way to kind of streamline a lot of those activities, if you will.
Yeah,
definitely.
Let's see, Christopher. So basically, evaluating tools that support both Amazon and Walmart, which I heavily agree with. By the way, we do have the beta for Walmart repricing available. So if anybody here wants access, just reach out to support. We'll get you access. You can be up and running within a few minutes. Okay, so looking at Quick Metrics, I don't think I've seen Quick Metrics before. So I will have to check them out. I dig that. I really do think that the future of software in the selling space, Amazon was the behemoth. That's all you need to do. But now you have so many sellers in one of three camps. They're exclusively Amazon, exclusively Walmart, or they're multi-product or multi-channel, should I say. So I think basically the best route forward for software for sellers really needs to be multi-channel. And that's going to evolve, right? Like, I mean, it might get to a point where Walmart's the behemoth and Amazon's kind of there. You might have something new that comes up and like, wow, that really took off. Holy crap, we got to focus on that now. So you really have to think through your architecture as you're building software now to be able to support those. And unfortunately, a lot of the software that has existed for a decade plus, they have too much what's called tech debt, meaning the amount of work it would take them to support an additional channel is basically rebuilding the software from the ground up because their architecture just is not conducive to supporting that concept. So a lot of software right now, and that has focused on Amazon that wants to go Walmart, they're really struggling right now. They're really struggling to adapt with the market from a technical perspective, and it's going to take them much, much longer to even be able to support it, let alone actually supporting it, right? They're two very different things. So something to really think about, but I think that's a good thing moving forward is like, even if you're only selling on one of the platforms, you don't want to be locked into a software where, you almost can't go to another platform without having to change your entire software stack. You want to be able to say, oh, cool, now I'm selling on Walmart as well. Great, flip a switch. Now you're also repricing on Walmart. Great, problem solved, right? Like I don't have to move a bunch of stuff over, take half a day to figure it out, learn this new software. It's like, I already know how this works. Flip a switch, we're off to the races. Making that transition should not have to be such a daunting, overwhelming mountain to climb.
Definitely.
Yeah, right. I am putting the both at the center of my criteria. It really filters down fast which tools do the both. Yeah, it really does. If you're out looking for software to solve certain problems as a seller, a lot of times, if not the majority of the time, we do this for Walmart and we only do this for Amazon, but a lot are not saying, well, we do it for both. And it's really baffling to me. I think a lot of developers in the reseller space right now are looking at what has historically worked well for Amazon-based software, where they say, we do Amazon. That's our bread and butter. And they're trying to replicate that same thing with Walmart and trying to ride that wave. But what they're missing, in my opinion, is a lot of sellers are actually selling on both. It is not a one or the other anymore. It is very much a multi-channel approach. And I think you really have to approach it that way. I think if you're just building X for Walmart or X for Amazon, you're going to do okay, but you're really not going to scale, and you're really shooting yourself in the foot, because most sellers, as they are scaling their businesses, will need to go multi-channel. And so the moment that happens, they're either going to say, well, I can have two softwares that does the exact same thing, but on different platforms, which sucks, or I'm going to leave you and go find a software that does both. Even if it's not as good, it's still more convenient. So we're going to see a lot of that in the coming year. Awesome. So we're going to start wrapping up here for time. I appreciate everybody joining us. Appreciate the awesome conversations. Hopefully you learned a ton. Keep in mind, this is open office, which means, or office hours. Sorry, it's open office hours. Can't think today. Which means there is no format. We're not coming here to teach you one specific thing. We're going to kick it off with some news or some ideas just to kind of get the brains going. But fundamentally, we're here for an hour each week to make sure we provide value to you guys. So bring questions, bring concepts, bring thoughts, whatever. We want to go down as many rabbit holes as you guys can bring us. We do this every Wednesday from 2 to 3 p.m. EST. So we'll be back next week as well. With that said, if you do have questions specific to repricing, selling, don't wait. Jump into our live chat. You're going to talk with Casey. You're going to talk with Finn. Jump in there, ask questions. We like getting questions. So you're never bothering us. We are here to help support you guys scale, grow, and do well and stay profitable. But with that, we will let you get back to the rest of your week. Enjoy the holiday weekend.
Yes. Yeah. Have a good weekend, folks. And one announcement with the holiday this weekend, we will be off on Monday. So support will not be running live as it typically does on Monday. We will resume on Tuesday at the typical time, 9 a.m. So if you do have any questions that come in over the weekend, we'll get to you first thing on Tuesday. But yes, as Dylan said, don't hesitate to reach out with questions in advance of next week's office hours. If you have a topic you want us to start with, feel free to come into chat and let us know, hey, been thinking about this a lot. Would love to hear your guys' thoughts. Feel free to give us some direction here. But yes, with that being said, enjoy the rest of the week there, folks. And we'll see you same time, same place next week.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Have a great one.
Adios.